Still coming in. Okay. This is my office. This is summer student. One student says it. One after meeting.
Well, great. Who's Hugh?
Hugh, the second one.
Oh. That was on screen.
No, I would have brought him in, but you could. You probably.
Order. Welcome to the meeting of the Board of Directors of the State of Hawaii Department of Agriculture. I am the chair, Sharon Hurd. Prior to calling the meeting to order, Stephen Dalton will explain how the public can participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed by video conference, telephone, or in person.
For those of you joining us here in Zoom, as an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting unless you're providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. Board staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chair, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. When testifying, you'll be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If anybody is joining via phone, when the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering pound and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering pound and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing pound and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter pound and then 6 again to mute yourself. In the event that the connectivity is lost and attempts to repair the connection exceed 30 minutes, the meeting may be terminated or continue to another date and time. Consult the webpage for updated information.
Thank you, Stephen. Testifiers are reminded that there is a 2-minute limit of testimony per agenda item. Thank you. And this meeting was called to order at 9:05 a.m. And I will take a roll call of the board members present. When your name is called, please indicate your presence with a here or present and state who, if anyone over the age of 18, is present in the room with you. This also serves as a roll call vote. For each subsequent vote, I will ask if there are any objections. If there are none, then the motion will be approved on the same basis as this initial roll call. Roll call, Russell Suji.
Present. No one else is in the room.
Thank you. Dr. Anya Bichore.
Here and alone.
Mary Alice Evans.
Here.
Diane Lay.
Here and alone.
Don't see Vincent. Not on.
I think he's excused, right? Vince Mina is excused.
Excused. Okay, thank you. Fred Cowell.
Here and alone.
Randy Cabral.
Here and alone.
Ann Young.
Here I have my 6-month-old with me, but other than that, no one over the age of 18.
Thank you, Ann. Happy parenting. James Gomes.
Here and alone.
Thank you. Regarding the minutes of the last meeting, may I have a motion to approve the April 25th, 2023 minutes?
So moved, Jimmy.
Jimmy, and may I have a second?
Second, Diane.
Thank you. Any comments from the staff? Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
There are no raised hands from the public.
Okay, so we any discussion from the board? Any objections to approval of minutes? No? Hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes is amended. as amended. I'm sorry. Hearing none, the motion to approve is approved. Okay, introductions, we've done that, and now we move into the communications from the divisions and administration. First, from the Agricultural Loan Division. As I am the current acting administrator of the Agricultural Loan Division, this first item is, I'll be doing the presenting. The request for approval to reopen and modify parameters for Department of Agriculture's emergency loan program to provide relief due to overpopulation of the axis deer in the county of Maui. May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved, Jimmy.
Jimmy and Mary Alice for second.
Yes.
The presentation will be that the axis deer issue is continuing. And the law states that only during the time of the emergency proclamation, any harm done by the axis deer can be mitigated with a loan. So in order to continue to offer loans, we need to extend the emergency proclamation, which has been done. For that reason, we're going to ask, I'm just advising and requesting your approval to reopen the ag loan program, increase the amount of the maximum loan amount, which is currently set at $150,000, and also extend the number of extend the time limit that you can apply for the loan. Did I forget anything? I think that's it. So requesting approval to reopen the loan through the end of June, modify the parameters for DOA's emergency loan program, modifying to allow an additional amount over the $150,000. And hopefully we'll be using the emergency monies, although there is no deadline for that. I've been advised that as long as the harm to your operation occurs during the time of the emergency proclamation, you can file it for a loan until the funds are exhausted. So those are the changes that I'm requesting, basically just to reopen the loan and allow an additional amount to be over $150,000 to be requested. The maximum that we're suggesting is $350,000, but that is subject to approval by the board. Okay. Any discussion from the board? I'm sorry, any discussion from the public?
There are no raised hands from the public.
Okay, and discussion by the board?
Chair,
Yes.
I speak in favor of the motion. I think the axis deer situation on Maui and Molokai is a crisis for farmers, and that these changes will help farmers and ranchers cope with the natural population increase that is none of their doing, but needs help to deal with.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Any further discussion? Is that Russell?
Yes, but someone else has their hand up first, though.
Diane Lee.
Go ahead, Diane.
I just had a point of order. Did somebody make a motion?
Yes, we
If-
did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The motion has been moved in second.
Sorry.
Thank you, Diane.
Dr. Anya, that's your hand.
Dr. Anya?
Yes, I would like to speak in support of this motion and this loan. We heard from our CETA stakeholders, again on Molokai and Maui. This is a huge problem for our farmers, so I would like to speak in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing Russell Suchi?
Yes, I just had a question to ask our Deputy Attorney General if they had an opportunity to review the terms and conditions and everything is appropriate, as I noticed in the submittal. Just wanted to ask that.
I have not reviewed this one, but I can certainly have. I'm not sure if Brian Yee, who's the normal deputy for the
Right.
board, might have reviewed it. Or we can always.
Okay.
Russell,
Great.
I spoke with Brian last week, and he mentioned that he had reviewed this
Okay.
motion, and so I feel comfortable that it will pass Attorney General's review.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, because I know Brian was involved with at the last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, no further discussion. Are there any, I'm calling for the vote. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, so we're moving now to the second item on the agenda is the Agricultural Resource Management Division. This is a non-action item. Is there anyone from AgLoan Online? I mean, from Ag Resource Management? Brandy.
I'm bringing up.
Good morning, everyone. Can you
Hey,
guys hear
Brandy.
me okay? Good morning. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I am Brandy Ayo, Property Manager with the ARM Division on the Big Island. This morning, I will be presenting a non-action item, an update on the transfer of public lands from the Department of Land and Natural Resources to the Department of Agriculture pursuant to Act 90, codified as Chapter 166E, Hawaii Revised Statutes for TMK numbers 3-9-8, 001, 003, 6, and 13, 3-9-6, 001, 002, 3-9-8, 001, 011, and 12, 3-9-8, 001, 9, and 10, 3-4-4, 014, 002, 3, and 11, all on the island of Hawaii. Act 90, Session Laws of Hawaii 2003 established a non-ag park lands program within the Department of Agriculture and was codified as Chapter 166E HRS. Under this program, the legislature found that certain public lands classified for agricultural use by the DLNR should be transferred to the HDOA for purposes and in a manner consistent with the state constitution. The purpose of this chapter is to ensure the long-term productive use of land, public lands leased or available to be leased by the DLNR for agricultural purposes by allowing these lands to be transferred to the HDOA for leasing and management. In accordance with the provisions of Act 90, the Board of Agriculture and the Board of Land and Natural Resources must mutually approve of the selected land parcels for transfer. On the Hawaii Island, the following 4 parcels of land were identified for transfers. RP 7637, RP 7758, and General Lease 5374, all for Kapapala Ranch, and General Lease 44575 for KK Ranch. Staff has conducted its evaluations and determined that the 4 land parcels are appropriate for agricultural use. The lessee will be able to perform in full compliance with the existing lease or permits. The lessee is not in arrears, and the agricultural operations can be economically viable. In summary, the lands are appropriate for transfer to the Department of Agriculture's non-ag park program. Staff anticipates that the BLNR will approve the transfer in mid-June, and this matter will come to the board for final approval in its late June meeting. Other parcels are anticipated to be similarly identified and evaluated in the future. No action needs to be taken at this time, but staff will be available to answer any board questions, hear any board concerns, or receive requests for additional information to be presented in the June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Does anyone from the public wish to offer testimony on this?
There are no hands raised from the public.
Okay, discussion by the board.
I got one.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
First of all, I would like to thank both chairs, DLNR, Don Chang, HDOA, Sharon Hurd, and all staff that made this happen for Kapapala as well as KK, for, Bill and Lonnie and Jason and Jerry. It's been a very, very long process. So hopefully with this transfer, we kind of get the momentum moving again. And as Brandy said, hopefully we can get more leases turned over to DOA. Again, thank you all for your hard work, and it's been a very long process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Any further discussion by the board? Fred?
I just wanted to echo Jimmy's comments. I know the folks down at Kapapala Ranch have been working really hard on this, providing a great service to that side of the island, and good on Bill and Lonnie and the rest of their family. And thank you to the staff.
Thank you, Fred. No further discussion by the board, hearing none. We'll move on to the next measure. As there's no vote here, was simply an advisement and update. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you. Have a good day.
The third item on the agenda is from the plant quarantine branch.
Good morning, Chairperson and members of the Board of Agriculture. Can everybody hear me? Good. All right. Thank you. My name is Noni Patnam. I'm the land vertebrate specialist for the Hawaii Department of Agriculture Plant Quarantine Branch. And today we have the following requests to allow the importation of guinea pigs, Cavia cobea, Cavia parcellus, domestic mice, Mus musculus, and domestic Ratus species. Animals on the list of conditionally approved animals by permit for research by the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services, and to update permit conditions for this importation of guinea pigs, domestic mice, domestic rats, animals on the list of conditionally approved animals by permit for research by the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services. Guinea pigs, domestic mice.
We've done the motion.
Should we go through the rest of it? Okay.
Well,
May I have a motion to approve the request?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Any second? That would be
Seconded.
Anya. Dr. Anya, thank you.
and now the
Okay, now the presentation?
Yeah.
Presentation, thank you.
Thank you. Guinea pigs, domestic mice, domestic rats, are on the list of conditionally approved animals pursuant to Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR Chapter 4-71. Conditionally approved animals may be imported into Hawaii for individual possession, businesses, or institutions. Please refer to attachment 2 for the species proposed for import. Please refer to the first PQB note located on page C2, which states the PQB has previously approved import permits for Dr. Sylvia Kondo, University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services on October 26, 2022, and years prior to import conditionally approved mammals. Refer to attachment 1. After the completion of the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals Advisory Committee meeting on May 12, 2023, the applicant provided additional valid certifications and animal welfare assurance from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institute of Hawaii, Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare, and Animal Welfare License for research facilities from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Animal Care, and accreditation from Association of Assessment and Accreditation of Laboratory Animal Care International. At the time of the submittal distribution, the affirmation documents were not verified. Okay. Moving on. Please refer to the second PQB note located on page C3, which states that the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services elected not to include chinchillas in this request. Dr. Michael Wong was informed that in the event that they decide to import chinchillas at a later date, they would be required to go through the review process again. As mentioned previously, we are working to update the permit conditions for condition-approved mammals for research purposes. Please note that a post-entry inspection was conducted at both the UH facilities located at Manoa and Kaka'ako on April 12, 2023. Please refer to the third PQB note located on page C4, which states pursuant to chapter 4-71 HAR, domestic races of Philippine rabbits are not considered non-domestic are not considered non-domestic animals. Therefore, they are not covered under PQB's permitting requirements. However, they are regulated by the Hawaii Department of Agriculture Animal Industry Division. This request was submitted to the Advisory Subcommittee on Land Vertebrates and for the review and recommendations. I received a total of 6 out of 8 Advisory Subcommittee recommendations and from the recommendations that I received, all 6 Advisory Subcommittee members recommended approval to allow the importation of guinea pigs, domestic mice, and domestic rats. Animals on the list of conditionally approved animals by permit for research by the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services. Please note that I did not receive responses from 2 of the Advisory Subcommittee members, and the comments provided by the Advisory Subcommittee members are located on pages C19 and C20 for question number 1. For question number 2, I also received a total of 6 out of 8 Advisory Subcommittee members, and from the recommendations that I did receive, all 6 Advisory Subcommittee members recommended approval to update permit conditions for the importation of guinea pigs, domestic mice, domestic rats, animals on the list of conditionally approved animals by permit for research by the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services. Please note that I did not receive responses from 2 of the Advisory Subcommittee members, and the recommendations for question number 2 are located on pages C20 and C21. Okay, this request was further submitted to the Advisory Subcommittee at its meeting on May 12th, 2023, held simultaneously in person at the PQB conference room located where we are now, 1849 Awiki Street, and via a Zoom virtual meeting. Please refer to the Advisory Committee comments located on pages C21 through C22. A vote was called and 5 of the Advisory Committee members approved the request and the motion carried. Moving to the proposed import permit conditions located on pages C22 to C26. There's a PQB note located on page C23, which states condition number 9 was amended as a result of comments and correspondence with Dr. Mayetta. He was consulted on the language of this condition as presented. Moving along, please refer to the staff recommendations located on page C26, which state, based on the favorable recommendations and comments of the Advisory Subcommittee on Land Vertebrates and the unanimous recommendations to approve the Advisory Committee on Plants and Animals, the PQB is recommending the board approve this request and establish the update permit conditions. Thank you for your time. This concludes my section of this request. Please note that Dr. Michael Wong, who is the interim university veterinarian for the University of Hawaii Animal and Veterinary Services, is available or is present and available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Noni. Does anyone from the public wish to give testimony?
There is one. I'd like to call Kathy Gogol forward. Please state your name and organization.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kathy Gogel, President of Animal Rights Hawaii. Our comments are regarding the blanket permission to bring these animals in. I'd like to know if they are all dedicated to specific protocols and if those protocols are available for the public.
Sorry, question, is there protocols for these animals? And so these are conditionally approved animals, so these animals can be brought in. As for protocols regarding that, for our office, the private individuals can bring them in for importation as stated. But as for, are you talking about protocols on how they are, what's done with them and stuff like that, Kathy?
Sorry?
Are you talking about the protocols, is like what happens to them once they come into Hawaii?
Well, yeah, the reason that they are being imported, each one should be for a specific protocol. And that information is not included in your submission.
Normally conditionally approved animals, private individuals can bring them in for pet and resale trade. This proposal right here, or this request is for research. And the research, I will defer to Dr. Wong. Maybe he could help me and assist with this, but normally animals that can come in for conditionally approved, or excuse me, are conditionally approved, are brought in for certain reasons. And as for research, I think, yeah, I will defer to Dr. Wong if he could help answer this question with me, please.
All animals that are brought
Dr.
in.
Wong, we're calling you forward.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please identify yourself. Your title.
My name is Michael Wong. I'm the interim university veterinarian at the University of Hawaii. With regards to the first question on whether animals are brought in for research purposes, they all are brought in and used under approved IACUC protocols at the University of Hawaii. There are no animals that are brought in that aren't listed under any animal protocols that are approved by the IACUC. With regards to access to said protocols, that's outside of my purview. That's up to sunshine laws, and that would be a question for university itself.
Well, as members of the IACUC, we usually get access to the meetings of the minutes of the IACUC. And the protocols are very often discussed in camera. And so we're trying to find out what these animals are being used for. And I see a great lack of transparency here.
I'm not sure how to respond to that. That's, again, outside of my ability to respond for the university or the IACUC.
Is it somebody they come back with?
This seems like it might be a matter more between the university and not COA. COA reviewed the request and seemed to be satisfied with, made the recommendation. The decision is up to the board, but it seems to me that the university might be the source of the information she's looking for.
Kathy, could you restate your request?
Certainly, I would like to have access to the protocols for each of the animals that are going to be allowed to be imported, include the rodents as well as the cavies and the rabbits.
Okay, Dr. Wong, is that information available or accessible?
That I don't know what is by law. I don't know what's available, accessible. I'm required to sign a non-disclosure when it comes to IACUC meetings and minutes. I know that people can request from the university, and the university does release what is by law allowed to be released. But that's outside of my ability.
Got it, thank you. Let me turn to council and ask if we can actually move forward with the vote.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Kathy, any further questions for the presenters?
No.
No, okay.
Board discussion.
Any other public discussion? Anyone out there with a hand up?
There are no other raised hands in public.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Discussion by the board.
Is Jimmy trying to say something?
No,
I have a
discussion.
question.
thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, first of all, you know, they're saying, Dr. Wong, that maybe at a later date, if so, you might include chinchillas. My question is, why wouldn't you include it now? The chinchillas, rather than going through it again? That's one question. because you'd have to go through this process again, but, I don't really know why wouldn't it be included now? And I also see that you talk about rabbits, but the rabbits must be already approved? Is that correct? Because I don't see it on this presentation here.
With regards to chinchillas, I've been at the university for 18 years. We've never used chinchillas in animal research, and which is probably why we haven't added it to this process at the moment. With regards to rabbits, I'm not entirely sure on the question, why it wasn't.
Rabbits are considered non-domestic, considered domestic and not considered non-domestic, so it's not regulated by PQB. However, it's regulated by animal quarantine branch or the animal industry. So it was part of their request, however, it's not regulated by PQB, but by AQ. So that's why there is that little note. So even though plant quarantine doesn't have any regulations on it, we do verify that it is a domestic animal when these animals come in, and it's not like a wild hare or so. And then any other requirements regarding health certificates or any types of things prior coming in is from animal quarantine.
Okay, but thank you. I have other questions too. In your advisory subcommittee review, as you stated, there were two people, Mr. Tom May and Dr. Carolyn McKinney. They had no response at all, and no response as far as approval or no comments. Is there any reason why that two did not respond and everyone else did?
I didn't follow up with those two. I am working to update my advisory subcommittee members for the past request. I haven't received any responses from Tom May. And then as for Dr. McKinney, yeah, sometimes she does get busy with stuff, and when she does have time available, she does make her comments.
Yeah, I was just curious, why weren't they all on board? So another question, or if you don't mind, is the scale that you have for the fee that you charge for the permit application for restricted commodities. This one is for $100. How long is that fee good for? And is there a structure of fees that you gauge application, the review from? The permit application, is that fee go up or down, or, what sets the basis for the fee amount?
These fees were as part of Chapter 158. They have been approved. They don't go up or down unless it's reviewed and approved. So to bring in conditionally approved animals within a 1-year time frame, you pay $100, and within that time frame, you can bring unlimited amounts of non-domestic animals, depending on what you are requiring. As for if you wanted to bring in a single shipment of animals, which is conditionally approved or so, it would just be $20, a flat rate fee. And it's one time, once you bring it in, the permit is completed.
Okay. My last question. Is it possible for any board members of Department of Ag, such as myself, I'm asking, for us to have a tour of the facilities, the Manoa, the Kaka'ako, the Biomed? Is that possible?
Normally, I'm not sure how to answer your question. Normally, as plant quarantine branch, we do go out and do conduct site inspections at these facilities and just make sure that everything that is provided and the information it's sound or it matches. As for the board members going out, I would have to defer to Dr. Michael Wong to see if that is a.
I'm sure it's possible. It's never been requested of us, but I don't see any issue with giving a board member a tour of the facility.
Is that something you can get back to the board with?
Yeah, I can find out.
Appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? I do have a question for Noni. Noni, the non-domesticated animals, I'm sorry, the rabbit that's considered a domestic animal, once it arrives into the state, do you have any idea what AI does with it?
animal industry.
Yeah.
It comes into animal quarantine. They make sure it has certain health certificates or any type of requirements regarding rabbits. Once they complete their inspection and make sure that all the paperwork is approved on their side, they contact our office and we just verify that it's not non-domestic or wild hair. So as for animal quarantines, regulation, health certificates and stuff like that, I normally defer to Dr. Mayeda or Dr. Kishimoto down there, but they normally handle those requirements. We don't get involved with that other than, hey, can you guys come and check this animal to make sure it's domestic or so. But in general, with non-domestic animals, we go through the same process. Animal quarantine has their own regulations and rules and requirements that they follow. And then once it meets animal quarantines regulations, the next step is our plant quarantine. And we make sure that the commodity that's coming in is listed on the permit and everything matches. And if everything is good, then we pass it second.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that just because it's a domestic animal, it doesn't mean it comes into the state with no inspection.
No, everything comes into animal quarantine prior to getting released, whether it's domestic, not domestic.
Okay. Any other board discussion? If not, we will move to the vote. Are there any objections to the approval of this permit? Hearing none. The request is approved. Thank you, Noni. Thank you, Dr. Wong.
Thank you, members of the board.
Okay, so we had a short agenda this time, but we do have one more item.
Two
Two items. Okay. So under new old business, no old business on the agenda. We do have two items for the new business section. The request to delegate to the chair the authority to refer collections of pesticide violation penalties to the Department of the Attorney General. This was, we're going to continue this agenda item until the next board meeting because the agenda item did not conform with the submittal request. The agenda item will be corrected on the agenda for the next meeting, and we will discuss the this item for when the board needs to approve a request or when it can go directly to the Attorney General for the chair's decision. Okay. The second item is also a non-action item. And what this action item is at a previous board meeting, we had discussion on interest rates that the Ag Loan Department administers that is decided by statute. And as we know, this January 1st was a pretty dramatic increase of the interest rates, and the discussion from the board was that we should take a look and see how to make this type of dramatic increase less impactful to the agriculture community, especially farmers that have come to the lender of last resort. So this item is only to advise the board that we will be submitting a bill in the next legislative session requesting to cap the interest rate on loans. There's no need for a motion or action on this. However, the advisement was that the cap that was mentioned at the last meeting of 4% will probably be on the request at the next meeting. Okay.
Chair, I'd like to thank you for taking that matter up and working on it. I think it's very important that farmers and ranchers who use the loan opportunity have interest rates that they can afford to pay. And as long as the department is covering its costs for this program, I think, using the, crime rate, which it follows the Federal Reserve's attempt to reduce inflation, is not appropriate for farmers and ranchers in Hawaii.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Any other discussion by the board? I see Diane.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. Appreciate you bringing this forward. I did have a question about the aquaculture loans. Will that be included in this proposed legislation?
I see, very good, and it is 5%, and that'll be a board decision, but the bill will pretty much just say cap it at 4%, and the board can decide if you would prefer to carve off the aquaculture loan and keep it at 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate the engagement with the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other discussion? Hearing none.
I have something, Chair,
Okay, go ahead, Jimmy.
but has to do with the division reports. I'm just curious, how many vacancies we still have open in the department and what's the status in filling those? And also one other question I have is, what's the status of a deputy since Morris has moved on?
Both are excellent questions. Let me take the deputy one. We're in discussion right now with the governor's office as to potential fills for the deputy director position. Thank you for bringing that up. Right now, no progress. I have not been advised of a short list. Regarding the first question, I have good news about that. Right now, we have a +12 on our vacancies. But as we all know, any department head knows, towards the end of the year or during mid-year, when people decide to retire at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the year, that +12 can jump pretty dramatically. Number of vacancies is still a rough 1/3. I'm gonna use the number 92. But what happened with that number is right now, I will be asking personnel to give a new number because as we know, the legislature assigned or approved a lot of our requests for additional staff. For instance, with the meat inspection services, we requested 2 positions in our ag industry division for meat inspectors or people with that kind of expertise to handle the meat inspection, but we had to give up 2 positions. So it should be a net vacancy, but I don't know, as sometimes we have asked for additional positions in quality assurance for inspection on labeling. And I don't know if we gave up any positions on that. So right now, the rough number is 1/3. We have about 300 staff. So I would say there's about 92 openings. Jimmy?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
And Young has it.
Sorry?
And Young.
Oh, Ann. Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, real fast. You know, I know in us asking kind of going along the line of questioning, are we required to agendize some of those questions just from a sunshine perspective?
Yes.
Oh, that's a yes.
I gave a little bit of leeway. I was hoping we won't get too far into too big of a discussion, but yes, we're supposed to only discuss items on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. So, no further discussion? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Is there a second?
Second, Jimmy.
Jimmy, thank you, Jimmy. So calling for the vote to adjourn. Hearing no objections. Thank you, Board of Directors, Department of Agriculture. Meeting is adjourned.
Aloha. Have a great week.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
What time is it?